Hi, I'm Janie MacMillan,
And I'm
and,
Mary Jo Burkhard.
and we're here to share information that we love to talk about. I work with the Akashic Records, and Mary Jo channels an entity or a group of beings called Chardon, and she also works with the Akashic Records. So we thought it'd be really fun to share the similar material that we're getting from these two different sources. So again, I'm Janie MacMillan. My principal use of my gifts is to be connecting with the Akashic Records. I use them on both a personal uh, basis, and I also work with other people with their records, helping them understand how to make their lives better. My first time in the records, I'll never forget this. I was sitting on a rock out in a yard, and we were asked to just go connect with our records and feel what it was like to be with our records. Don't ask any questions, just experience the records. And it was so amazing to me because it's the first time, probably the only time that I've accessed the records that I felt like I was going to a place. People always talk about landing in a library or, they've gone to this amazing hall. And for me, I just remember being surrounded by this golden light that I can't even describe the color because it wasn't golden, but it was golden. And I saw the outline of beings, like the silhouette of beings that I knew were guides. They weren't the records, but they were with me in the records. And I heard clearly, "Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to the party." And so I thought, that's a lovely way to be greeted into the records because I love a party. So that was my experience, and it's been wonderful since then. How about your experience, either with Chardon or the records?
So I have a quick question for you, though, first,
Yes.
Janie. When you encountered all of these beings around you, did you get a sense that you had met them before, or was this the first time ever meeting them?
No, I felt like the party had been going on without me, and they were saying, "We're glad you're finally here." So they probably have been around me all my life, my lives. I just wasn't aware of them, if that makes sense. And so
Hmm.
that's why it's like, "Welcome, we've been waiting. You're the you're the last part."
That's great. So again, my name is Mary Jo Burkhard. I am a Reiki Master. I do channeling and cranial sacral therapy, and I'm in the Akashic Records as well. And my primary focus in using those gifts and others is really about helping myself and others to move through our own transformative life journey and to our purpose and path. To me, it's really about who are we becoming, or sometimes I'll say, who is it that we want to be when we grow up, right? It's always about transformation and change and helping myself and others to get there. And that's really what I use both channeling and the Akashic Records for. My my first experience in the Akashic Records, Janie, was quite different than yours.
Mhm.
I was really early in my Reiki training, and I was in Reiki 2, which is the second series of classes that is offered in that training process. And in Reiki 2, there's a point where there's sort of a longer, deeper guided meditation. And I ended up after that meditation, literally curled up in a fetal position on the classroom floor, bawling my eyes out. And I just had to go sit in another room. I really wasn't able to articulate what was going on, nor was I able to say that I could continue with the class at that point because nothing was working except that there's just floods and floods of emotions coming through me. And so I went and sat in the other room, and the teacher, Linda Haley, who's also the director of the Reiki Center, gave me a couple of crystals to hold, saying like they'll help calm you down or get you back in your body. And I sat down and was holding those and trying just to focus on breathing. And I had several experiences that sort of blew away some of my belief systems in a really short order right then. So as I'm sitting there, I felt like a being came and sat down next to me. Beings which I didn't believe in came and sat down next to me. And I knew this being had a name, this being wasn't from our planet, and this being took me by the hand and we flew through the stars and we landed on a planet. And there was this huge building. It had all of these sort of white marble Greco-Roman pillar sort of things and big old building. And we went to it and we went into it to a desk, and this being helped me check some things out from the desk. I got a scroll, which I knew had my purpose, and I got this giant book. And at this point, I had very much been on a journey to determine or find, like, is there something bigger in this world? Is there something that I was calling it like my search for the divine? And I absolutely also did not believe in reincarnation. Like, hands down, I was firmly entrenched that reincarnation didn't happen. We got one life here. When you're done, you're done. And so you just needed to make the best you could of this life. This book on the top of it said Book of Lives, plural. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this book was my book of lives. So I spent some time there. I look at the scroll. It has some symbols on it, which I wrote down later. And it really doesn't translate into anything that I can say for sure what it is. But I knew it was my purpose and related to my purpose. And the Book of Lives, I flipped through them, and spoiler alert, everybody dies in it, which it was really interesting. I don't know what I expected. And I saw that there were some lives that I seemed to be a really good person, and some lives I seemed to be a really not so nice person in what I was doing. And I just felt like there's way too much here to read. So I gave everything back and I said it was time to leave. And I came back into the room that I was in. And the class was just sort of ending at that point. And they were going to come into the room to do some table time, work on each other. And
again, this is a Reiki class. This has nothing to do with the
Akashic Records. Yeah. Nothing to do with the Akashic Records. I didn't even know what the Akashic Records were. I had heard of the Akashic Records. I mean, I'd heard that term. I'd heard the term Akash, but I really had no idea of what it was and why you would even want to use it, what you might get out of it. And it was in this, as the class came back and they said, oh, you went to the Akashic Records. And
who said that?
Somebody in that room, right as I described it, they said, oh, like that was the Akashic Library. You went to the Akashic Library because that's what that was. And I thought, okay, I don't really know what it is, but that's cool. So this set off a huge existential crisis. I mean, so if that part about reincarnation wasn't real, and this being was something I was supposed to deal with, right, then everything else had to be redrawn on the table in terms of beliefs. So really deep dive, no glorious golden light of peaceful joy. It was
no party.
No party. The Akashic Records felt very welcoming, very safe. It felt very grounded. I felt like I could go there and be there. It felt familiar. But yeah, there was also a lot in me to unpack at that time. So that was my experience in the Akashic, my first experience in the Akashic Records, Janie.
I love it.
Like you, since then, I have never really gone to a place. That first time I went to a place, and after that, I have never gone to some building or location. It is more just, for me, simply like connecting to information.
Yeah. That's the way I have it. Well, and I do like to tell the story, and I'm happy to say that Mary Jo has been in my class in how to connect to her records. And I just want to be sure people understand that when you take a class like that, it's not the only way to connect to your records. The intention of the class is now you can do it intentionally at this time. because people work with their records all the time, probably don't realize it. But um, I always laugh and tell my students that I've never been in a library. And yet, almost every class that I have, someone says they land in a library. And I really think it's the Akashic Records kind of poking fun at me and saying, see, we can be a library. I really think that they just like to tease me about that.
Mhm.
But so, when was the first time that you channeled Chardon? Was it after that?
Correct. It was after that trip into the Akashic Record. So it wasn't too far downstream from that, but it was probably 2 to 3 months
Uh huh.
after that that I began to channel Chardon and to channel it all,
Uh
actually.
huh.
So and maybe the visit to the Akashic Records opened something
That's what
and
I'm saying.
shifted. Yeah.
Yep. Well, it opened you because you saw lives and you
Hmm.
took that to mean what it meant. And I think that, like you said, you've told me this story about how it just changed the way you thought of everything.
Yeah.
And so perhaps that did open you to even allowing yourself to hear the channeling, right? Of course, I say Reiki is the gateway. And there you were in a Reiki class. And I swear that just knocks the dust off, don't you? I just think it gets you open to believing there's more out there.
Right. Well, particularly the way that it's presented oftentimes there is, it starts with, okay, what do you know? What can you
Mhm,
sense and feel? You
mhm,
begin to come at it from a pretty somatic, body-based
mhm,
approach, and
mhm,
then from there opening further. So I think it allows those people like me who had a lot of sort of rigid strongholds in me to be able to unpack some things and you're right, open as a gateway
mhm,
into what is the wider sense of the universe, what is the essence of consciousness, what is it that we're here for, how are we connected? So
mhm.
lots of different information. I agree with you on that.
Yes, yes. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. So the first time, how did Chardon? Can you explain Chardon and how they do you call Chardon they?
I do call Chardon they. So my first
Hmm.
experience is I was channeling a little bit already before I met Chardon. So I was doing what I call a radio dial approach. And
Hmm.
my first experience in channeling was also, I come out of some religious background. I was pretty sure I must have a demon because there was something in me trying to talk. Yeah, I
I'm
know.
sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
I laugh at it now, but when you only know certain things and you haven't explored even other religions, or I mean, I knew a little bit around some religions and certainly had spent a lot of time in more of the Zen Buddhist spaces around meditation and opening in that way, but I wasn't a follower of any of those in any kind of religious sense. So when you get locked into certain beliefs, they can keep you from opening up into all sorts of things.
Yes.
Yeah. My first exposure with Chardon was when I was trying to connect into what I could feel something or someone trying to connect to me that I felt was very familiar, felt
Oh.
like it was a connection that was supposed to be a longer term, like not just turning the radio dial
Mhm,
to see what kind of channeling 101 can come in, but something that was more of a relationship or longer term
mhm,
engagement.
mhm.
And so when that happened, I was also pretty new into channeling. Channeling was a challenge. I mean, it flowed and it felt like home and it felt like something I could trust. But I was still having a lot of resistance in me,
Mhm, mhm,
strong science mind, strong other
mhm,
beliefs.
mhm.
So letting those begin to break down over time. So to get a couple of sentences out from Chardon probably took me 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh gosh. Yep.
Yeah. There
Yep.
would be long crickets. I mean, Chardon would speak,
Mhm,
and then there would be long crickets where I was trying to rehold that connection and
mhm,
be able to tap into that. And I
mhm.
I feel that Chardon and the records have some similarities. You and I have discussed
Yes.
this. How are they different? How are they the
Yes.
same? So I think they have some similarities in how they work with us and how they I love it how you said sometimes the records will poke you, right? Well,
Yep.
sometimes the
Yep.
records will poke me, but sometimes Chardon will poke me, or my guides
Yeah.
will poke me in various
Yeah.
ways. And it's really just about, hey, there's opportunities or options here that might be much more aligned with where your heart's purpose is than what you're choosing right now. And would you like
Mhm.
to explore those? They usually don't say it quite that nicely in the moment, but it's
Exactly.
really the method,
Exactly.
the message.
Well, and from teacher to teacher, because Mary Jo also teaches people how to channel. Don't you agree that the main role of the teacher is to assist the students in getting their mind out of the way? I mean, that's what it is, isn't it?
100%, right?
Yep.
I like to say anybody can channel.
Mm-hmm.
Who does? It's those who can let their practical functional
Mm-hmm.
mind step
Mm-hmm.
aside a little bit to allow your imagination and your heart and your soul to come forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think as another role as a teacher is to affirm that what they're receiving is real, because the first thing people think of, am I just making this up? I mean, I
Mhm.
still think that sometimes. I
Yeah.
honestly do. After, I don't know how many years it's been. There's times I think, really? And it's just, you have to learn how to go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The records actually say to me, Janie, just say what we're saying. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
I
that's
love it.
one difference for me in the records. Well, I think two differences in the records and channeling. So one is with the Akashic Records, that is a completely soul-based, higher consciousness, safe space, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
no protection needed. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
when you turn the radio dial on channeling, you can sometimes dial in things that you really don't have an interest or aren't helpful for
Oh,
you.
mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Yep.
yes, there's affirming in our classes, and sometimes there's oh, okay, like that connection right there isn't helpful for you. And you can tell the person doesn't feel comfortable with it. They don't like it. So how do
Mm-hmm.
we stop that? We shut that door. We open up a different door and just tune into a different channel that wishes to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing around the Akashic records, so I tend to call them the Akash. When I hear from the
Yeah.
Akash, it comes through as information that I will typically write, and I can filter it to some degree if I want to. So I'm not giving other people their Akashic information.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm channeling, it's like I allow Chardon to come in. I scooch over on the couch, I give them the
Mm-hmm.
microphone, and
Mm-hmm.
they start talking. So I wouldn't get from Chardon just
Mm-hmm.
say what I'm
Yeah.
saying because
Right.
they're saying it. It's more, can you get out of
Right.
the way a little bit further
Right.
because we're talking?
Right. And I really feel that many times I'm interpreting an idea that they're sharing with me for someone. You and I have both talked about having this image of vast possibilities when we're sharing this information with a client, and it's really hard to find the words. I just kind of say I can't even find the words to explain how big this is.
Hmm.
It's 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 such an amazing, um again, I feel like I'm interpreting, trying to explain this feeling or this idea that I have, which I think is more Akash than Chardon. It's Chardon who's actually doing the speaking when you're channeling.
Yeah.
So
So
I
when
think
you
that is
say,
different.
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So when you say you see big possibility, does it show up as, for example, do you see the galaxies or do you see the wide ocean? What gives you that impression that it's just full of possibilities?
Vast nothingness to
Mm,
be filled, that the client can fill however they choose to.
that's lovely.
So, um, the way the records have explained it to me is we all bring these possibilities in with us. My possibilities are different than your possibilities and, anybody else's possibilities. And that's like in career. Maybe I could be a nuclear physicist where you could be working on, I'm trying to think what else. statistical stuff, right? There's no statistical stuff in my possibilities. I want no part of that. So that's why when I see this vastness, it's up to me to choose what I want to fill that with. And how I know what my possibilities are is what my dreams are. So we never have a dream that can't happen. They don't necessarily will happen. But if I have a dream of being an astronaut, maybe because of time, because I didn't make the choices to be an astronaut, that is no longer in my possibilities. But at some point in my life, if I had a dream of being an astronaut, I could have followed that path. So I know we both like to talk about free will, and that's one of the things that we have found is very similar between what you channel from Chardon and what I receive from the Akashic Records is you could have the potential. In fact, I just told a client this morning, I said, you could be president of the United States. Would you please run for president of the United States? We need you. I mean, I was being a little silly, but if that person never goes out and fills out the paperwork to become a candidate, then it doesn't matter if that was their possibility. They have to do the actions to lead them into that possibility. So that's how we choose which possibilities we bring in, is by our thoughts and by our actions. So very much free will. That's why the records do not predict. They say you have this possibility. Now it's up to you. Do you want to pursue it? How does Chardon address free will?
So I love that. First off, I love the way that you kind of frame that for people and frame it for all of us to understand. I would say Chardon talks about probabilities and possibilities. Sometimes, and it's a fairly common imagery that they will bring forward and share with people, which is to say there is an open horizon. So you're
is it the sea, or is it stars, or is it?
They will just simply say it's an open horizon, and people get to fill in what that will be. But they'll say when you get to this place where there's this open horizon, there's no path. You create the path step by step. Now, when they talk about probabilities and possibilities, they don't predict either, and they will say, you know, we're not God, we don't predict, we don't know those things, but they will say you're already pulling in the threads. They often use another analogy of, you know, the universal consciousness in our lives are just threads and streams of flowing harmonic energy. And so you've already been pulling in, for example, that astronaut thread. You will have been pulling parts of that astronaut thread for a period of time if this is truly a probability. It just won't spring out of nowhere. You will have been pulling that for a period of time. But there's always these random possibilities. So, you know, a possibility is you could quit your job and move to another country and change your name and start your life all over again. Well, that's a 1 in a bazillion possibility. It's out there. How many people ever choose that? It's almost no one. But sometimes that little branch will show up in our life as, you know, maybe you're thinking, wouldn't it be great if I could just like start this whole life all over again? And so to what you would allude to, like maybe there is a bit of a dream in there or a thought in there, or just a wish of starting over. And most of us won't take that very slim possibility path. We're more likely to stay in our probabilities. But even within our probabilities, there will be choices. And so maybe there's 2 or 3 threads that are actually pulling you pretty strongly. You're the one who gets to choose those. But here's what I also have heard from them, and this is just fascinating. If you think about these things being all branches as a tree that would come up, so here's the tree and you start in a branch and you're coming up this way. Well, if your ultimate goal is you want to come someplace up here, you could go this way and come up here, but you could also go this way and come over here. And so it honestly sometimes doesn't matter nearly as
Mm-hmm.
much as we think about. I
Mm-hmm.
know some people who have sweated the details on, should I have pizza or tacos for dinner?
Mm-hmm.
Do what you like, right? It does not
Right.
matter.
Right.
You might meet somebody in choosing one of those. You go to one restaurant, you go to a different restaurant, you may meet somebody and maybe that will have an influence. But neither of them are going to prevent you from getting to that spot that you're trying to get
Yes.
to if you just keep continuing to move along the path, because it will keep pulling you towards that and help you shift and move your direction. So whether you take like the scenic route or you take the fast route,
Right.
you're here a bit to enjoy life. And I know this is something the records have told you a lot about, the fun in how much you're supposed to have fun and enjoy life. Chardon
Mm-hmm.
might talk more about what's your purpose in your soul's path
Mm-hmm.
and how you move towards that. But I'd really love to hear you talk about the enjoyment part of life and what you've heard from the Akash around, really how we're supposed to live this life with some enjoyment, excitement, and fun.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I I fully recognize that I have my own filter. We all have our own filter on the way we receive information. And I'm a person who likes to have fun. So a long time ago, when I started deciding that I had input into my life, I decided my analogy is I want my life to be like an amusement park. I want to ride every ride,
Mhm.
taste all the food. I'm going to get everything out of my day at the amusement park that I can. So I just want to tell you in fair, that's where I'm coming from. I want to have a party. So the way the records share it with me is this is a vacation that we came from divine perfection. That's where our souls exist. We are divine light and love. We're part of source. So when we separated from source so that we could have these adventures, whether it's on earth, other planets, other planes, we came for the difference. So a lot of people complain about life on earth. And the records really want to remind them that you came from divine perfection where everything is light and lovely, and you came here for the difference. So that's why we came to earth, to experience the lower vibration. I say it's like we jumped into the mud. We wanted to be a completely different, there's emotions here. We have to operate in these physical bodies, and it's very low vibration compared to where we're from. And so that's what I think trips people up, is they're a little bit disconcerted with how low vibration everything is, and this needs to be slogging through. And I think that's the way many humans teach us it has to be as well. We're here to work, we're here to do better, do stronger. If it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. And what the records are asking us to remember is, look, you're here. They give everyone 120 years. That's what they say. You're only going to have 120 years here. Do you want to spend it complaining about what it's like, or do you want to enjoy it? So, what is on earth that we don't have in other planes or where we're from? So I like to say, for me, the weather, I love the weather. I love hugs. We don't have hugs because we don't have physical bodies when we're just souls in the light. Animals to me are a big deal. Yes, I believe there are animal souls that are up there with us, but we can't love them the same way that we do down here. And I know there's joy where we're from, but it's different when it's joy created by an event or by the way you feel. It's a different kind of joy. So what the records are always asking clients to do, and me to do, is pay attention to what you're going to miss when you leave. So for me, I'm going to miss hugs, and I'm going to miss the weather. And
Mhm.
so I revel in that. I love being out or watching it rain, or smelling flowers, the beauty of flowers, hugging my dog, getting hugs from people. That's what I'm going to miss when I leave. So that's what they're asking us to do, is to like really enjoy the stuff that we can only get here on earth. And that's what they say by making it fun. It's never going to be perfect. We are also here for a purpose. We're here with lessons to learn or things to experience. And yet, I mean, there's no Iceland anywhere else. There's no Italy with the wine and the food and the, they say if this is a vacation, don't just go sit in the hotel room. Get out there and taste the wine, eat the bread, touch David's statue's toes. You know what I mean? It's what can't you do once we're out of here?
Yeah. That's a fantastic way of looking at it, right? Because what it it suggests is, we get to another sort of shard analogy, put on costumes. What
Mm-hmm.
what do you want
Mm-hmm.
to be? What do you want to play? What kind of
Mm-hmm.
role do you want? That's also part of this whole play adventure. You can change. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't like what's happening around you. You don't like who you're showing up as. You get to change. You get to be someone
Exactly.
different. You get to be someplace different if you want. So how do you make those choices and decisions that allow you to to change? And I think all of us in this world, not just those who connect to the Akashic Records or channel or do any kind of metaphysical anything, we're all being asked to shift and change right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
They might call it the Great Awakening or
Mm-hmm.
the shifting. I think it's really about the evolution of our humanity and how we as humans are evolving ourselves. We are stepping more into the wholeness of
Mm-hmm. Yes.
our physical and our spiritual selves coming together. So instead of thinking of ourselves as, well, I'm just this human and there's nothing else that exists in this world, which
Mm-hmm.
is really one end of the spectrum, to some end, which is, well, we're all just light and love and we should just be disappearing off this planet, right?
Right.
In
Right.
between is really the beauty of how we come together, and
Mm-hmm.
we merge those two parts in a way that we bring our physical into our spiritual and our spiritual into our physical.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we get to be all of ourselves, not just
Yes.
little pieces and parts. And I think
Yes.
that that's what this shifting is all about, that we get to be all of ourselves and we get to help the world maybe be all of themselves too, in ways that
Yes.
I don't know that we've been in a very long time.
Well, and I think for the first time for me, part of waking up is recognizing that we are souls having a human experience and then creating a partnership with our soul and our human body, because our soul needs our human body to have this experience. And it's about knowing that we're more than just our human body, and yet acknowledging the role that our human body plays in it, and the our soul does not make poor choices. It's our human part that makes choices that are not in the best interest of everyone. Would you agree?
I think sometimes our human goes off script, right? Our human just says, yeah, I see the script. I'm just not interested in doing
Yep.
that
Yep.
today for whatever reason. I'm
Yep.
afraid of that. I'm really comfortable with what's happening in my life. I don't see another way, so I don't know that it's
Mm-hmm.
possible. Yeah, I'm stuck in believing that, like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm just making all this up. I think all of
Yep.
those are true parts. And how do we then again recognize that maybe it doesn't matter that we started down the tree over here. We're good if we choose. We can allow ourselves to come
Mm-hmm.
into different ways of being. Every single day, every single moment, we get to start all over again, right?
It's all choice.
With every choice and decision,
Yes. Yes.
we can change. And you see some people radically turn their lives on a sharp corner, and from there on out, everything transforms for them. Well, we don't have to have some major life event. We can just start
Mm-hmm.
with the little thing
Mm-hmm.
right in front of us, and we just keep doing that over time.
Yes, yes. And the Akashic records right now are really focusing on helping us release our limiting beliefs that we have gotten mostly from other people, but also from the collective consciousness, right? There is a positive to the collective consciousness, and there is kind of a underbelly to that as well that has some of those other less than positive ideas. And so the records really are asking us to, how does something make you feel versus does that seem logical when you're making decisions in your life. So when you're deciding if you want to go to Italy, how does that make you feel to go to Italy versus, oh, I can't because there's not enough money and there's this, there's that, right? You can either logic your way there or out of it, or you can say, but my heart really wants to go. I'm going to figure out, make some choices so that I can fulfill this dream. And when you come across those limiting beliefs of that's going to take too much money or I don't have the time to do it, that's what they want you to start waking up to. They're hoping that we'll wake up to and say, really? Is that real? Or is that just the way you've been kind of programmed or conditioned to think your life? You have the ability to choose to go to Italy. So now, if you choose to go to Italy, what do I need to do to start saving money? So I'm going to quit having that latte every day, or I'm going to, give up my cable for 6 months or something, right? We have the choice of funneling the money to get to Italy if that's what we choose to do, because we put that on our priority.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that applies to Italy. It applies to the small interactions that we might have with this relationship
Mm-hmm.
isn't going well. How do I want this
Yeah.
relationship to
Yes.
be? To how do I want my world to be? So
Mm-hmm.
it is about those beliefs. We've talked a lot. I don't think we set out to talk about beliefs today, but we've talked a lot about beliefs today.
Yep.
Those beliefs that keep us in some tiny little box.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Chardon is a great fan of saying, you didn't come here to live in a tiny little box, and you didn't come here to complete a set of checkoff boxes,
Yes.
right? There's no list
Yes.
that we're supposed to do. We are supposed to listen into our heart and listen into our body, not because our body and our heart have all wisdom in there, that really lies within our soul, but our body and our heart are much stronger connections into our soul and our soul's purpose
Mm-hmm.
than is our mind. Our mind is up there. That's the one that's telling us, you can't do this. There's
Mm-hmm.
no way.
Yep.
You can't afford it, right?
Yep.
Listening into our body and listening into our heart then allows us to find that there are options, there are possibilities. That
Mm-hmm.
horizon is actually a lot wider and a lot
Mm-hmm.
bigger than we thought.
Yes. And the very first choice that I hope everyone will remember is, are you happy? That's completely a choice. It's, you can wake up every morning and say, I'm happy. And that will affect how your day goes, because even when you get that flat tire, you can be grateful that it happened in a place where it's easy to change it. Or, it's just shades everything in the way you look at your life.
Mm-hmm.
We can't control everything, but we can control how we look at everything.
Yeah. And there are days I feel that, I like to just say, there are some days and some things that happen to us that just suck, right? It's
Yes.
just
Yes.
hard. Like
Yes.
there's things that don't seem to have a reason, they don't have a purpose, and they really are hard.
Mm-hmm.
For me, those times are when I need to turn to gratitude. And Chardon has told me time and time again, gratitude is the gateway to joy. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't even say happiness, they say it's the
Mm-hmm.
gateway into joy.
Love it. Love it.
How can you find something again, maybe it is that the flat tire happens someplace that's easy, or I look outside and there's, the sun is shining, or I see the color of the flowers, or I listen to some children laughing. What is it that can just a little bit turn me into a little bit of gratitude? How can I find a little bit more gratitude? I'm not one who tends to do gratitude journals. I tend to be,
Mm-hmm.
what can I find in the moment that will give me just a
Yes.
touch of gratitude that can help me, again, I won't even say make different or better choices, but it's being able then to see that there's more of this horizon that's open that I
Mm-hmm.
have choices and possibilities in. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that idea of thinking about how we frame our day and how we frame
Mm.
our life. For me, I have to usually get it down to maybe how I frame this minute sometimes, Janie, not how I'm going to frame the
Absolutely.
hour.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, and that's the reason that Chardon and the Akash, I love that with the way you call it. It's so funny. You call them the Akash, I call them records. It's like we have either end of the spectrum there, the name. They can't predict because how we approach each minute shapes our future. So
Mhm.
they can't predict what's going to happen because we're choosing it as we go, which I used to be fascinated by those books where you got to choose what happened in the story. I think that's a little bit behind me, but that's really the same thing. You get to choose your outcome. You get to choose how this is going to go. And that's the most amazing gift. It's kind of the good news, bad news, I like to say, that we get to choose. That's the good news. And we get to choose. That means it's on us to choose. And
Yeah.
we have to take that responsibility.
That is probably one of the things that I would like people to really take away from this. So Chardon gets asked a lot, well, what's going to happen this year? What's going to happen in the next couple of years? And they will talk about what is the energy of this year? What's the energy of the
Mm-hmm.
next couple of years or this decade? Because the threads, we're already pulling those threads
Yes.
in. As
Yes.
a collective, as all of humanity, we are pulling in those threads already. So they can see what are the probable threads that are
Mm-hmm.
already coming in. And yet they say exactly that. You all haven't created your world yet. You all haven't
Mm-hmm.
created your future yet. You get to create it as a collective, as
Mm-hmm.
all people. And you don't have to have 100% of all people in alignment. You probably need about a quarter to a third of
Mm-hmm.
souls and hearts.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be on some quote unquote spiritual journey. Not everybody's going to get into metaphysical spiritual life in the same way,
Mm-hmm.
but you see it by how their hearts interact in compassion and
Yes.
joy and hope and
Yes.
peace. And
Yes.
those are becoming much more common currency
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
our society. People are longing to see that and to be able to give it and receive it from each other. And they want a world that is filled with more of it. So we, good news, bad news, we get to create it
Mm-hmm.
in ourselves. And that's the primary place in this world that we can change. We change ourselves.
Yes.
That
Yes.
changes the atmosphere and the energy
Yes.
that's coming from us.
Yes.
That may resonate with others and they may tap into that or connect with it, but it encourages others too. Oh, this
Yes.
is possible. I didn't realize that we could have joy and compassion in
Yes.
this world when I see all this hard stuff going around.
Mm-hmm.
I want joy and compassion in my world,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's something
Yes.
I can get in and
Yes.
follow as my path as well. So I totally love that. Uh, Good news, bad news, and we create because it is true. We get to
Yes.
create the world that we want to live in, and
Yes.
this is a great Chardon one, but we came here at this time
Mm-hmm.
to create the world that we want to live in. We
Mm-hmm.
chose to come here in the midst of all of the stuff that we're going through right now. I mean,
Yes.
I joke. I don't know that I read the fine print of that contract very well. I don't know that I actually paid attention to anything beyond sign your name here. Because
Exactly. What was I
I'm not
thinking?
this human is some
Yeah.
days thinking, I don't know that I would have signed up for that. But
Yeah.
clearly I did. And clearly
Yeah.
I thought it was
Yeah.
important enough to be here at this time.
Hmm.
And so, just like you said, I might as well enjoy the wine, eat the bread, like smell the flowers and go for walks in the woods along with whatever work and purpose that I came here
Hmm.
to do.
Absolutely. You might as well enjoy it while you're here.
Hmm.
And I really, the one thing the records talk about a lot is it's getting ugly so that we will hopefully say no.
Hmm.
But we can't make change until we agree, at least 25 or 30% of us, no, this isn't, it's forcing us to decide how long we're going to put up with this. Is that a good way to think of it?
I would say that's exactly the way that
Mm-hmm.
Chardon and other guides have presented it. There's a polarity, there's a stark contrast. When things are more gray and nuanced, it's harder to choose between, and it is
Mm-hmm.
also easier to ignore. But when it
Mm-hmm.
becomes very challenging and very polarized and very stark in the way of contrast in an uncomfortable, painful way, it
Mm-hmm.
does cause us to get jostled out of our ruts.
Yes.
It causes us to, if you want to say, wake up or pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
We've all experienced that, or many of us have experienced that on a personal basis, where you might have ignored something in your personal life, in your health, in your family, or your workplace for such a period of time until it became just too much and you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't ignore it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, now you got to do something about it.
Yep.
That's magnified across our world, and that's what we're facing is there's things that we can't ignore anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and we're being asked to, what are you going to, we're not even being asked, we're in charge of this
Yep.
this world,
Yep.
this life, right? there
Yep.
is there's not there's not people on white horses that are going to come in
Mm-mm.
and save us, right?
Mm-mm.
We are the future. We are
Mm-hmm.
the world that we create, and we are the souls and the spirits right now in this time period that are helping to build the change, this transformation. And we
Yes.
all have different roles. I think
Mm-hmm.
people that are my age and above, we're probably not here to literally create what the future will look like, because I just know pretty much the past.
Mm-hmm.
I've been invested in the past. I've helped build what we have in the past. It is those who are coming in with new ideas.
Right.
Those are the ones that are gonna be the creators and the builders, and just like getting my mind out of the way so I can connect to the Akashic record
Mm-hmm.
or I can channel. It's a bit about getting myself out of the way, but how do I support and help
Yes.
to build and facilitate those other things that are coming in?
Yeah, because I think that people our age would have a limitation of saying, oh, that's really too much. And the young kids would say, no, that can be possible. So you're right. I think we need to, like you said, just get the heck out of the way and we'll support.
Hmm.
Um, I had a friend say something about she wasn't, she didn't want to focus on what was happening. She was just going to be an observer, right? And I remember the record said something along the lines of the Mother Teresa, if you're just going to be an observer, if you're not going to do anything, at least send your energy towards the positive. Don't be neutral. So, Mother Teresa, it's my favorite saying, I'm for peace. I'm not against war. I think we need to be very careful that we're
Hmm.
focusing on what we're for, what we want to support, and not focus on, I hate that. We need to stop that, blah, blah, blah. That just feeds the beast more. And it's better to focus on the light, on the I'm for connection, I'm for compassion, I'm living connection, I'm living compassion. And that's how you spend your energy towards what we're aiming for instead of against what we don't want.
Oh, I think that is perfectly said. A lot of business models and science models would say the solution is not in the problem.
Mm-hmm.
By focusing on the problem, you can't come out with a great solution. You have to step away from focusing on the problem to see what are the other things around it. And that model of thinking and sending positive energy or focusing on what you want to see in the world is not ignoring, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
not numbing out, we're not
Mm-hmm.
ignoring, but we are saying is maybe I can't do everything, Janie. I can't be there for this, and this. So I'm going to put my physical energy over here. I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
some things in this
Mm-hmm.
because this is where I feel like I have a lot of either giftings or strengths, or it's just really pulling on my heart. This is the area that I'm going to focus on. But in these other areas, I just need to be aware, and I want to consider what is the outcome that I want to use my language of the energy of my language, the energy of any actions, the energy of my thoughts, the energy of my emotions. Yeah, I'm going to be for peace in that
Mm-hmm.
situation. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
for hope in that situation. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
for compassion and justice in that situation. And over here, I want all of those things, but I'm going to do something over
Right.
here
Right.
because I can't do 5 things, 10 things, 100 things well. I need to choose a couple. And I think that's, our world, because it's become so integrated with our ability to access via the internet and all kinds of different communications, we are now aware of everything all of the time. And
Mm-hmm.
it's had the effect for many of us of just shutting us down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just way too much. So how do we come back to those things that what's our purpose? Why are we here? How do we then change ourselves? Because
Mm-hmm.
Chardon always says, like, everything starts on the inner
Yes.
landscape.
Yes.
Before you get to change anything on the outer, you're not here to change the world first. You're here to change you first.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
out of that flows your ability to change the world.
Yes. Yes.
So focus on changing yourself to
Mm-hmm.
be those things that you want to see in the world. And if you want, like Mother Teresa, you want to see peace,
Mm-hmm.
then how do you focus on peace in the world?
Right. And I do think that I have been guilty in the past of, let's just talk about the war in Ukraine or in Israel and Gaza. Well, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. And probably literally me, Janie, there's nothing I can do. Yet I can send hope, send light, send love to that area so that they at least experience that and let the universe know that I do care what happens over there, even though I can't physically go do anything. Like, does that make sense? We can always send light and love to a situation that we don't feel like we can impact.
And the science and data would support it. You look at the group meditations that have come together to
Mm-hmm.
change the energy in an area. So they have
Mm-hmm.
gotten together, they have set the intention of want to see crime reduced in this area, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or something else change in the area. And they set up things to measure literally the energy in the area, but then they also look at the data and the science and the
Mm-hmm.
statistics that are out there. And they find that simply by coming together and doing these group meditations,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they're looking at will be up here. And then there's the meditation and it comes down. And then it will trend back up and they do a meditation and it comes down.
Ah,
That's
yeah.
it's not coincidence that
Yes.
it's there. And so
Yes.
that's the intentional group coming together. If all of us
Mm-hmm.
as individuals with or without others are able to just do that, we will also have similar sorts of impacts. And if you
Mm-hmm.
are interested in joining one of those groups that sends energy, you can find many of them that will gather at a certain time. They will do a bit of a meditation or set an intention. And so now you're joining your voice to anywhere from, in some cases, hundreds to
Oh,
hundreds of thousands,
mm-hmm,
and you
mm-hmm.
will be part of that is helping to shape and change an area. So
Yeah,
totally.
isn't that amazing? So
Hmm.
I just like to remind people that there is something you can do even when you don't feel like you can do anything. And the records also talk about that as well. If I see that you're having an issue and I want to help you fix it, not my job, right? But I can always send you light and love and support. I can't fix it, but I can support you through it. So remember, it's not ours to interfere with someone else's path. We can send them light and love though to make it more comfortable. So
Hmm.
I think it's a matter of understanding what we can control and what we can't.
Yeah.
Well, this was terrific conversation, Mary Jo. Thank you so much. I We're both accessible through the Reiki Center in Columbus, Ohio. If you want to make a session with either one of us, you can find us there under the Reiki Center in Columbus, Ohio. And it's just so fun when we find people along our paths that can support us and affirm what we're receiving from more than one location in the universe, so to speak. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm thrilled to have been here. This was just a fantastic, joyful, playful conversation. So thanks for having me, and thanks for letting us explore these together.
Yes. Bye bye.
Bye now.